Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, we're going to talk about Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., also known as R.F.K. If you found this content interesting, please may you click the bell and subscribe. Robert Kennedy announced he'll find the cause of autism by September 2025. Kennedy is a politician, environmental lawyer, an anti-vaccine activist, and the US Secretary of Health and Human Services. Kennedy made the public statement, I quote, "Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted." End of quote. Where it says that autism destroys families, no, it doesn't. That claim is actually very hypocritical. Doesn't everyone say and complain about it when people use autism to excuse behaviour? Yes, they do. So that means that you can't go using autism as an excuse to excuse broken relationships and to excuse, if you do not accept, to excuse your unacceptance of autistic people. I would like to call a few things into question. The fact that Robert Kennedy has given a date to reach a conclusion sets a red flag for conspiracy. We do not control when we receive enough evidence to make a conclusion in science. When a date is set, that gives away it's a predetermined project. Predetermined projects set the alarm for conflict of interest and confirmation bias. Returning to the point, Kennedy is an anti-vaccine activist and is more interested in vaccines. Am I spotting a conflict of interest here in Robert Kennedy? Robert Kennedy trying to verify his agenda, especially when his agenda is based on a conspiracy by Andrew Wakefield. The journalist Brian Deere exposed Wakefield's fraud. I recommend you to read Brian Deere's book, The Doctor Who Fooled the World. I will include his book in the description. Before saying anything else, I would just like to say Brian Deere deserves our appreciation for his work. Thinking the cause of autism can be found by September this year, in 2025, is extremely unrealistic. This thought of Robert's reveals he's one of two things. He's either entirely incompetent and stupid, or this project is a conflict of interest. I find the latter more plausible. And this brings us another problem. If this is a conflict of interest, Robert is misusing his authority as Secretary of Health and Human Services to verify his bias, which is abuse of authority. On Google's AI answer about abuse of authority in the United States, it says, I quote, "In the US, abuse of authority, while not a standalone federal crime, can lead to criminal charges depending on the specific circumstances and the type of abuse. It's often intertwined with other offences like official misconduct, malfeasance in office, or violations of civil rights. States may have their own laws addressing abuse of power or official misconduct." End of quote. If I understand, Robert Francis Kennedy is participating in official misconduct, misleading the public with misinformation with his anti-vaccine campaigns, and that can surely be seen as abuse, since it discourages parents from giving their children something which could save their child's life. That certainly sounds like abuse to me. So Kennedy is possibly practicing criminal activity in his office. Secondly, Robert Kennedy clearly sees autistic lives as inferior, and this shifts us into the realm of eugenics. The fact Kennedy claims autism is an epidemic He has told direct lies to the public as there is no such thing as a genetic epidemic. Epidemics spread across populations. We know autism does not spread. Those of us with an autism diagnosis are not walking around infecting people. Robert is already starting a conspiracy by making statements contrary to all of the scientific evidence in autism research. Eugenics is the way to premature extinction of humanity. He will bring our species to extinction if he keeps going through with his eugenics. That should be enough to tell us Robert Kennedy is in no way qualified or educated to make any decisions about how we are to react to disability, disorders, and diseases. Mutagenesis is the only way to generate genetic diversity. We cannot survive without genetic diversity, as in 1932, during the eugenics movement, J.B.S. Haldane proclaimed, I quote, "A society of men that was uniformly perfect would still produce an imperfect society. The enormous genetic variety among humans and among plants and animals as well was important because it will always allow some individuals to survive different environmental changes. When the Pilgrims came over to America, a few had the genetic predispositions that enabled them to survive the alien environment in America with its foreign germs and new living requirements. Those that survived may not have been the strongest in the land from which they came, but were stronger in the new environment. If all those who came over were genetically identical, likely none of them would have survived." End of quote. Out of all the disabilities, disorders, and diseases that exist, why is Kennedy so specifically concerned about autism more than others which are actually fatal? Autism's not fatal, it doesn't kill us, but we've got things like cancer that actually do kill people. The only reason I can think of to understand this excessive concentration on autism is he is trying to verify his biased belief that vaccines cause autism, even though there is no evidence for that claim. Steve Silberman, the author of Neurotribe, said, I quote, 132 kids in California got the measles by either visiting Disneyland or being exposed to someone who'd been there. The virus then hopped the Canadian border, infecting more than 100 children in Quebec. An effective vaccine against it has been available for more than half a century, but many of the kids involved in the Disneyland outbreak had not been vaccinated because their parents were afraid of something allegedly even worse, autism. End of quote. It can be said that anti-vaccine activists are the very cause of those children's deaths, as the activists refused to give their children what could prevent their death. Anti-vaccine activists are murderers, ending numerous lives. Robert Francis Kennedy is a murderer, encouraging people to let their children die from a disease like the measles. In summary, Robert Francis Kennedy clearly has a prejudiced attitude towards disabled people, specifically autistic people, since he has predetermined and unrealistic proposals. He is misconducting science. Kennedy is basing his project on his beliefs with no evidence. He is an intentional liar to the public, claiming autism is both an epidemic and a disease, contrary to all evidence. Kennedy is either incompetent or has a conflict of interest abusing his authority, which is possibly criminal activity. Robert Francis Kennedy, I address you if you see this. Provide us your evidence and hypothesis that proves Andrew Wakefield's work is not fraud and that vaccines have any link to autism. There's lots of contradictory evidence to your claims, so you also need to disprove the evidence for vaccines have no link to autism. Good luck, eugenicist Robert Kennedy. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, please can you subscribe and share to spread the message. I'll see you next time. Bye.